So normally when I have the opportunity to present, I worry about my videos working. Today, all I'm worried about is my shoes. That's literally the only thing I can think about right now. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be talking to you. You know, I looked up the year Yale was founded, and I'm sure you know, you probably didn't need to look it up, but it's 1701. And GE is younger than Yale. It's rare that I get to talk to an audience where GE is the youngster amongst us. But I was thinking about the topic I'm here to talk about, which is how a company that's 140 years old stays relevant and contemporary as a brand, and the way we do that. And it really occurred to me that there must be a lot of similarities to a university like Yale, which is all about staying relevant, staying contemporary, staying authentic. So what I thought I would do today is share with you primarily what we're doing on the digital, the social, the mobile front. We do a lot in terms of advertising. I, like one of our speakers earlier, don't usually use the word advertising. I talk about stories and film and content, but I'm going to focus more deliberately on the digital side, because a lot of where we are sort of pushing the edge, and I think we are pushing the edge, is on digital. So every year, this is kind of how I sort of cleanse and get ready for the new year. I take a little bit of time and write a media manifesto, and I get input from people I know on the outside, people like Anne and the gentleman that I know that she works with at Viacom, people from my team, and this becomes sort of our media manifesto of the year, and it's a bit of our guiding principles. And it's kind of meant to help us, certainly to help me, market in the year that we live in. A quote from a good friend of mine, Gary Vaynerchuk, because for a brand to stay contemporary, and for us all as marketeers, future marketeers, to think about what we do to stay contemporary, it is very much about what is now. So I'm going to share with you today some of those principles and kind of try to bring them to life with examples. So the first is this idea of brand as network. And I have such respect for the media company. I'm literally not going to walk much because of the shoes. And I'm going to ask, the countdown clock didn't start, so maybe you guys want to start that just so I don't stay up here forever. Thank you. So, I have a lot of respect for Viacom, for Facebook, for, I'm sure, many of the other companies that either will be up here or certainly media companies that you know. And we work a great deal with those companies, with Vice, with the New York Times, with many, many others, and you'll see some examples of that. But increasingly, we're also thinking about our own ecosystem, the one that GE has pulled together. So we have about 5 million people, give or take, that have raised their hand and have chosen to be part of that community. And they're on Snapchat, and they're on Twitter, and they're on Facebook, and they're on YouTube, and they're on LinkedIn, and they're on Yo, and they're on many, many platforms. But it's a network, if you will, that we can have a direct conversation with. And increasingly, as we are all in this age of binge viewing, I guess I could ask for a show of hands, but is there anybody in this room who has not binge watched a show recently? Anybody? One. Okay, I want to talk to you later. I need to give you my list of things to watch, because there's a lot of good ones. But what is great about binge viewing and over the top is also what is increasingly going to be a challenge for brands and for advertisers, which is, what are the ways we get our messages out there? How do we relate? And I'll give you one example. We announced it just a few weeks ago, something we've spent about 3 years developing. We are partnering with some folks in Hollywood, Brian Grazer and Ron Howard and Paul Giametti and Angela Bassett, and the Nat Geo channel, and we're doing a long-form series on television called Breakthrough that will focus on scientific, technological breakthroughs. The breakthrough on the marketing side is that we're a full production partner. We are sharing this in terms of the stories being developed, how this comes to life. It's going to be global, which is for us, where we operate in 170 countries, incredibly important. It's in a funny way back to the future. Once upon a time, a long time ago, GE had something called the GE Theater that was hosted by a gentleman named, does anybody know? Ronald Reagan, thank you. Long before he had political, well, who knows when he had political aspirations, long before he was in office. So, this idea of coming together around long-form content is really intriguing to us. And it's anything but branded content. It's just good content. So that's one example of, as we think about owning, not renting media, the type of thing that we might do. Oops, sorry about that. The second concept, if you will, that we talk a lot about is this idea that today everything can become media. Light bulbs, which are something that is incredibly important still as a sort of talisman for our company, are media. Now light bulbs, LED software-enabled bulbs are intelligent. We had some fun with this recently, and had I really thought about this stage, I would be wearing a pair of these. But we created or recreated something that GE had a really important role in history around, and that was the moon landing nearly now 46 years ago. Last summer was the 45th anniversary of the landing on the moon of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They wore moon boots that contained GE materials, GE plastics in them. So as a brand, we constantly are thinking about, how can we be relevant? What are moments that are relevant, that are contextual? So we took this sort of inspiration of a role that we played in history, we recreated the moon boot sneaker, and that's what you see here. And they're really fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And we created 100 pair of them with a company called Thrillist Jack Thread Super Compressor, very sort of young, millennial-minded company. Hopefully Anne will agree with me on that one. Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up. We hadn't been on Snapchat before that. We went to Buzz Aldrin, who I don't think had heard of Snapchat at that point, and said, look, we're doing this, let's have some fun, let's go up on Snapchat. So we went up on Snapchat as a brand with Buzz Aldrin wearing these sneakers. We put the sneakers on sale on the minute, the hour, the minute, the day of the anniversary of the landing. We sold out the pairs in 7 minutes. The aftermarket, I don't know, somebody has to tell me if this counts for authenticity or not, on eBay is about $5,000 a pair. So why did we like this? We liked this because it was media, it was a way to communicate, it got us to a new audience, sneakerheads, fashionistas, that aren't necessarily thinking about GE on a day-to-day basis. It sort of harkened back to our role in history. And it was just a way for us to kind of communicate that broke through. Since that time, the Brooklyn Museum of Art has called us and said, would you mind, we're doing a sneaker exhibition, if these shoes traveled with the exhibition? And we said, that's okay, you're welcome to do this. So reaching new audiences in unexpected ways. I think a lot of brands use the phrase surprise and delight, so much so that I think it's becoming a little bit trite. But I think there's a trueness here, which is certainly for our brand. GE as a brand can show up in a few different ways. We can show up as a company that's 140 years old, that's a multinational, that's in 170 countries, that can be seen as a bit of a conglomerate. Or we can show up as a company that's human, that was started by an inventor named Tom Edison, that every day is out there trying to invent things in new ways and show it with a human face, behave as a person would rather than as a big company would. And we always choose, when we can, the latter. The latter's more approachable. The latter's one that makes you, frankly, I think of GE in a way that's warmer, that's even more emotive. So let me show you something we did. I told you a moment ago that we like sort of embracing moments. So one of the things last year that was high on our agenda was telling the story of advanced materials, and even the moon boots had sort of advanced materials on them. So we went up to our global research center, which is, actually they're around the world, but this one was in Schenectady, and we took everyday objects, baseballs, frisbees, what have you, and we applied the same pressure test that we apply to our toughest materials, and we called it Spring Break It. And the whole idea was see how tough these machines are with everyday objects. So I'll show you the video. So I have no idea, guys, why this is as fascinating as it is, but I've watched it like 100 times. It trended on StumbleUpon, it was on Imager, it just sort of went viral. And then you see, you know, this is what 100,000 pounds of pressure looks like. GE materials are designed to take the pressure under volcano-like heat, and then we show you where you can see more tests. So fun way to kind of, you know, do something unexpectedly. We try really hard as well to think about, and I think the gentleman from Facebook said this at one point, which is to publish remarkable content, because it doesn't matter, in my opinion, whether it's a brand publishing content or Facebook or one of you. Good content is good content. I don't think that there is a bar that says if it came from a brand, it's bad, and if it came from Jay-Z, it's good. I think a piece of great content can come from anywhere. But what we try to do is think really hard about the platform we're putting this content on. We don't take one piece of a 60-second film that might wind up on television and cut it up and say, there's a piece that's going on Snapchat, and there's a piece that's going on Vine, and there's a piece that's going here and there. You know, I think that idea of sort of stretching it like an elastic or a piece of gum, actually, it can work, but I think it's the rare occasion when it does. I think you need to think platform first. So this is a really fun example, and it's as cheap gets. GE launched on Vine, which now Vine feels old, doesn't it? But it didn't until recently, until I guess Periscope. But we launched on Vine the day that Vine was launched by Twitter. So first brand, not first B2B brand or whatever, first brand on Vine. And we did this by sort of leaning into science. You know, we like being very much part of the discourse of science. And we did these little 6-second experiments. So I'm just gonna, you know, kind of show you each one. That's a Q-tip in food dye in a Petri dish. This is, you know, the old potato experiment. Ice. Has to do the fizz thing. So only of this, I showed you 4, and they're very light. Only the first one was done by GA. The other 3 were done by people sending them in to us. So we did this first one with the little Q-tip and food dye, and it kind of blew up online, and people started sharing it. And we said, wow, there's something here. Let's create a 6-second science fair, which we did. We invited people to send us their experiments. And I think for people, it was like a trip back to, I don't know, junior high school or something, where, you know, you put the wires in the potatoes or whatever you did. So it was just a great way for people to contribute their ideas. We got hundreds and hundreds of them. This is one, I guess if I were to sort of pick one thing that I sort of, you know, go on and on about at work that I feel so passionately about, it's the role of the user. I think as we all think about marketing and media and content, I think the North Star needs to be the user experience. There's so many opportunities to use technology in so many different ways, but if you forget that the user is part of that, I think the whole thing is for naught. You know, and there are too many times I find myself in conversations with my team, with partners, with tech companies, where we're thinking to ourselves, wow, we could do this, but we forget that somebody has to experience it. So we always try to sort of bring the user into the conversation. I'm kind of reminded, and you guys may know this already, I don't even know if it's true, I just always say it, so I hope it's true, that Jeff Bezos from Amazon is famous for sort of bringing an empty chair, having an empty chair in the meeting, and the empty chair is for the customer. And I think the same thing has to be true here. So this is an example. I heard some dialogue before about, you know, television, old media, et cetera. We do believe in television because we believe in going where people are. If people stop watching television, we'll probably stop being on television. But where the users are, where consumers are, where business leaders are, where people are is where we want to be. So we had this idea, somebody on my team had this great idea, which was last year when Jimmy Fallon took over The Tonight Show. We knew that Jimmy was geeky, that he loved science, technology. He actually holds patents. I think he's the only late night talk show host that holds a patent. It's probably not a ton of competition there. So we went to NBC, we went to The Tonight Show with this idea that we then kind of crafted together around Jimmy and invention. And just time-wise, I may not show you the whole clip, but let me give you a sense as to what went on.
Man, come on over here, man. Hi, nice to see you. And what's your last name?
My last name is Makasinski.
Makasinski, and where are you from?
I'm from British Columbia, Canada.
Hey, cool. We love Canada. How old are you?
I'm 16 years old.
16 years old. Now, what did you come up with? This is very cool.
I created a flashlight that runs on the heat of the human hand.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, eye head's one thing, but this guy, what do you mean it runs in the heat of your hand?
Well, I use Peltier tiles on my flashlight, and by heating one side with my hand and cooling the other side, but with ambient air, and you can see it is a hollow tube, it produces electricity.
Let me see this thing.
So why am I showing you that? A couple reasons. I think that, in some ways, it goes back to the conversation about authenticity a little bit. We run advertisements, films, during The Tonight Show that are really, really good. But there is nothing like getting Jimmy, who is genuinely enthusiastic about science, to invite 3 young kids, which he now does 3 times a year, to bring their inventions on television. I didn't show you this, it's all on YouTube. Jimmy himself cooks up an invention each time that he brings on, and it's about a 9-10 minute segment every time he does it. We have our rule on this at GE is take 3 steps back and let Jimmy have fun with this. And they being The Tonight Show and NBC, have put on lab coats with GE logos and signage, and we give a big checkout, but it's just good content. It's just something that people really, really enjoy. The next one, I'm going to go a little quickly because I want to take some time for questions. I think in this world of digital and mobile and social, where we're all looking at what each other do, I think there's a bit of a danger in that, there are some really well-known and rightly so examples of, Oreo and what they did during the Super Bowl, and Samsung and Selfie and the Oscars and Arby and Pharrell's hat. And I think sometimes that spawns copycats who think, well, this is really easy. We're going to go do this. And I think, if you don't do it right, if you're not coming from a place where you really understand the essence of what your brand stands for, I think you really run the risk of falling on your face. We know who we are. We are incredibly comfortable at GE with who we are. We are a company that loves science, that loves invention, that loves innovation. It's right on our Facebook page. We're not looking to reach the most people. We're looking to reach people who care about the same things we do. We decided a long time ago that our goal is not how do we make jet engines cool, it's that jet engines are cool, and all we need to do is reveal it. So I would just urge you, as you think about marketing, as you think about brand, I think that's where people go off the rails, that's my view, which is thinking that if only we did what, fill in the blank, Oreo, Samsung, somebody else did. So that's kind of taken us to some really fun places. Yo, which is the text messaging service. We went up on Yo last year with a customer called CSX, a rail customer of ours. We make locomotives. And we created Yo Loco, where the rail cars tweeted back, gave information about, tanks counting gallons. We did something with a DJ, Matthew Deere, where we invited him up to our Global Research Center, and he created Sounds of Industry that we then released on DJ2 and had here it says 1.6 million downloads on BitTorrent. I think on DJ2 it was 8 million. In trying to kind of explain what we do, and I think sometimes that's challenging, we invited Baratunde Thurston, who you may know. He was used to write for The Onion, very, very witty guy, to come up to our GRC and do these master classes. So, I think in a couple cases, these are examples of borrowed equity, of how we lean into people who we think have a similar appreciation, but maybe a different lens. Quick one here, I think, we work really hard at content, but I don't think we ever think hard enough about how do we get these out in as many places as we can. We have something right now called Emoji Science. We took the periodic table, the chemistry periodic table, and replaced it with emojis, and it's really fabulous. We're having a lot of fun with it. On May 4th, May the 4th be with you day earlier this week, we created a lightsaber out of emojis. So just an example of something, emojis are post-literate, if you will. We can do that all around the world. And then finally, and then I'll show a really short video, and I'll have a few minutes for questions. GE is a big company, but we don't have a big budget. And we take a lot of pride, guys, in shouting louder than we spend. We take a lot of pride that when we have limited resources, we tend to be more creative. The Vine experiment with the Petri dish costs, I don't know, $3 to buy a Petri dish. I mean, something really inexpensive. To us, it's right creative, right place, right context. So I'm going to end, just because of the weekend we're going into, with something that we just released 2 days ago for Mother's Day. And it's kind of, once again, know who we are, something that we think is both very indigenous to GE, but with emotion. And I think being able to insert emotion, particularly for a company that is about industry and infrastructure, is always a great thing for us. So let's play, oh wait, I decided I was gonna do this, sorry. We'll play the last one. Here you go. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. So I'd be really happy to take a few questions. If somebody has a mic and a question, fire away, because, oh, there you go.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. I had a question about how you guys measure success, given how many businesses you have, both on the B2B side and the B2C side.
Like every company, we have all kinds of sort of ROI measurements. A lot of what I showed you today is upper funnel, right? It's how do we make sure that our brand stays relevant and contemporary. The way we look at that is our brand valuation is $46 billion. It's we're the sixth most valuable brand in the world. So we actually pay quite a bit of attention to sort of the strength, the resilience of our brand. It helps us in markets, it helps us get in the door. So that's one way. Second is we look at social sentiment every single day, and I've done that for 5 years. And I know that sounds sort of, I don't know, almost messy, but I've gotten to the point where I really know if it's been a good day or it hasn't been a good day, because after you get that kind of trend line, it's super, super obvious when something's popping and when something isn't. And then finally, we are early, but making, I think, some really good strides in connecting the upper funnel and the lower funnel. So I have a whole team called a performance marketing lab that's looking at how we add lead gen, lead nurturing forms to all of our content. And in some cases, it's going to be more prevalent than others. And then the last thing I'll say is we're really focused on social selling. There are people going on eBay now looking for our Yenbacher and Waukesha engines, and which is just amazing to me, right? Sneakers are one thing, engines are another. That being said, we need to be there where those people are, so we're also trying to connect the dots there. Anything else? That's it? Yes? I can't believe I don't, but I don't. but keep going. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask you to speak on that.
Yeah.
Since you
I normally see everything. I mean, are they things perhaps on the website, you know, maybe more kind of,
designs for the web,
yeah,
inspirational, emotional,
yeah,
amazing stories. So
yeah.
I was just looking for.
I mean, look, let me sort of speak to it, a bit more generally, because we have done sort of documentary style stories. There's one I'm thinking of, perhaps that could be the one about cancer, with people sort of, you know, this mother who's gotten cancer and a family surrounding it. So if what your question is how do we sort of tie together all the efforts, perhaps, you know, what we've tried to do is create a branded house, which we are. We go to market as GE. And I think within that, to sort of do what we call freedom within a framework. So, you know, we set what the tone is, we set what the brand is. We're a brand about optimism, we're a brand about innovation, we're a brand about flexibility, et cetera. And then work with each of our businesses in terms of how that comes to life. And for some, it's more overt than others. Health is something that has such an emotional tie to it. They do a great deal. Our steam turbine business does less. So it's kind of a balancing act. Good. Maybe one last one, I guess?
Yeah. So earlier today, Ann talked about making the advertising also about the place people want to work.
Yeah.
So this stuff is amazing. How do you connect this and just continue the conversation you just started into your divisions where you have a lot of people who may not be talking and thinking in these terms?
Yeah, it's a great question. We try very hard, and there's something I didn't show, which I kind of wish I did, this ad that we released last year during the Olympics about My Mom Works at GE, which is all about sort of what your parent does at GE that's been wildly popular across the company. But even the last video that I showed, we put that out internally first. For the last 2 days, it's been whipping around the GE Women's Network. The women around GE have been posting it. I hope the men around GE have been posting it. Many of them have moms and wives, but certainly it's been posted by a lot of our employees. So we try really hard to sort of, when we're creating anything, think first, how can we share it internally before the rest of the world sees it? Increasingly, we're working very closely, so it's ironic, obviously, here, with our university relations teams, because we find that a lot of the work that we're doing is work that is appealing potentially to millennials, and we compete very fiercely for talent. We are a company that employs 300,000 people. It'll be 370,000 when we close our Alstom deal. We compete fiercely for engineering talent. Engineers have many choices, as does everybody else. So putting out kind of who we are in the right communities is incredibly important to us. But we really try to do employee first and then the outside world. So I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.